Okay, so without further ado, I'll turn it over to our readers and to Rebecca. And again, thank you all so much for coming. All right.
All right. I usually have to yell at the audience to be quiet when I start this event, but you're all muted, so this is great. Thank you all for coming tonight. I know many of you traveled all the way from your bed to your couch. Thank you so much. This is a very special plague episode of the NYU KGB Emerging Writers Reading Series. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are a student-run series from the MFA program at New York University. Our events are great because we have lots of amazing literature and also lots of beer. The KGB in our name is because we are all Russian assets. Also, the series usually takes place at the KG bar in the East Village, which you can see behind me here. To recreate the feel of being at KGB, I encourage you to pour yourself a beverage, turn off all the lights, get a drunk to crash the event. If you have any cats or small children handy, those work too. So we're having an all poetry tonight here at KGB. Don't tell all the prose students, but poetry is actually my favorite part of KGB. We'll be hearing from 3 MFA students tonight, Katie Martin, Jenna Lanzaro, and Matthew Williams. And I'm very excited to have Chen Chen here tonight as our headlining reader. I want to give thanks to my co-coordinators of this series, Luke and Mimi. Thank you to Joanna Yaz and the NYU Creative Writing Program and the Manderley Collective for bringing this event to Zoom. Our first reader tonight will be Katie Martin. I guess we can't really clap, so I don't know, jazz hands maybe for Katie, I don't know. Katie is a second-year poetry student in the MFA program that you all attend. She is probably feeling very nervous right now, but she shouldn't be, because she is talented, well-liked, she hopes. I think we can all confirm that she is. And her outfit falls somewhere between truly inspired and sexy orphan. So please welcome Katie Martin.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. I forgot that I wrote that. Thank you for hosting me virtually and otherwise. Sorry, I'm trying to read off of this iPad, and I've never held an iPad before. So here we go. Yeah, I'm a little nervous, even though this isn't in person. So to get more comfortable, get back to my roots via this Sears parking lot failed green screen attempt. If you'll just give me one moment. There we go. That's better. Yeah, thank you for being here with me tonight, really. My first poem is called Girl King of Trash Island. I trace Pacific trash gyre across my soft palate. Google napalm recipe. My profile says turn-ons include treason. I wanted to write about corruption, but couldn't find an entry point. It felt too self-righteous, like a man laughing at another man, looking at a woman, as if poems were not already exercises in absolution, dowsing rods to search for ley lines running parallel to office buildings full of cubicles. Here, an independent clause dangles like a porch swing. At the laundromat, the washers cycle through their machinations of renewal, port windows with a view of chaos, the sharp tang of a work shirt meeting the mushroomy dirge of a dish towel. On the corner, there is a car repair shop with an awning that reads auto body work. And although I do not drive, I feel that I have an auto body that is likely in need of some repair. This is a joke in the same way that an ambulance is a taxi service to bankruptcy, or in the way that all the philosophers are dead now, except for the ones that haven't died yet. Sometimes there is a moment, though, when suffering is able to find the door in the dark, a moment that falls in between buying a new bottle of shampoo and prying it open. Can you hear me okay? If someone could just give me a, yeah, all right, thank you. This one's called rubbernecking. Was it love or was it chemtrails? Despite my experimentations with miniatures, bentonite clay, oversized purses, diets consisting of mostly just tuberous roots, I still could not figure out how to not be a problem. Time was not a renewable energy source, though it mattered less and less. A tall, pink man, sawing through the clear alpine air with his cheekbones, remained the epitome of health. Meanwhile, I could throw a balled-up Kleenex into the trash can from across the room. Standing around took up too much space, but motion beckoned only more obstacles, insoluble as high-protein powder. The church on my block was called Cathedral of the noun painted over. It rained, and the bricks became wet with rain, and this too surprised us. There were people who loved me, yes, though they wished I'd take myself seriously, as if seriously was a place that could be driven to, replete with free admission, natural light, a place where, upon arrival, you were handed 3 daffodils in a white vase and told to really let loose. It seemed a nice enough place to visit, but I already had plans to take myself down to the duck pond with an armful of fresh bread. End poem. And now a brief Tonka interlude, because they're kind of funny and they're full of people. And I miss people. I slept with Zach because he had a giant whiteboard with one word on it, unfoldment, in block letters. His bed was in his closet. She made tuna cake, played bird songs through the PA, scattered white feathers to celebrate the birthday of Bubby the cat, who's 2. My friend's son asks me, where are bugs even going? A porchlight moth, a garden roly-poly burrowing. I didn't know, I didn't. This one is called Grandfather Cuts Loose the Ponies. It's an art installation in Eastern Washington to commemorate the wild horses that used to roam there that no longer roam there. Inner tubing the cobalt slash of the Columbia River, I get mad and I get handed a Kotex. Land hunger is a disease and I have it. Amid the aridity and the flicker of small lizards, this is an improbable river, but beauty is always bifurcating something red and bleeding. This time it's sandstone. Above the plateau, public art has happened. Plowing towards the ridge's eroded edge are 15 life-sized horses rendered in Core 10 steel, a patented iron alloy that maintains its structural integrity while rusting prettily. See, water doesn't get mad, it gets even and has more free time than you. It's wildfire season again, and adequate description continues to evade authorities. Our flotilla fans out and I'm dragged into the brush, full of pale spiders. If this was the Oregon Trail, Timothy would have dysentery by now. Sonia would be snake bit. You drowned. 800 oxen float by. Wagon axles hooked at breakneck's rotten angle. The oxidized horses look on from above. My pin curls spin out in the current like question marks or dollar signs. Face gone as dark blue as the Dalles, named by French fur traders and meaning gutter. I fold the word back into the furrowed terrains of my mouth until its heart song is dull and fungal and the river is a river again. This one's called Long-Term Parking at the Trenton Outlet Mall. 12 Corollas in a row, and none of them are mine. One Hindu creation goddess can hold 1,000,000 universes in the sheen of her littlest toenail. Live, active cultures lurch inside the full-fat Greek yogurt. An umbrella sticks out of an empty terracotta pot like an exclamation point. I'm not sad, I'm just at rest. You can dissolve a pearl in household vinegar, which isn't the revenge we deserve, but the revenge we're getting. Statistically, shoplifting is good for the blood, but have you tried spinning fire poi on skates? Have you tried spinning fire poi on skates while rocketing towards a huge pyre of old newspapers? Of course you have. You can get used to almost anything. Cleopatra bet Mark Antony she could spend 10 million sesterces on one meal, then dropped a pearl earring into a chalice of vinegar and drank it. Only a man would rather fall on his sword than live with disappointment. Maybe a sourdough starter is as close to God as one can get. Fermentation, the true miracle here, in the particulars of a pickle jar, chemical bonds breaking down into some absolute particle as all the crickets go quiet, quiet, quiet. And then I'm just gonna read 2 new poems. This one's called More Often Than Not. Somewhere else, people were dying and died as I learned to embroider, make soda bread using only 4 ingredients and the taut utensils of my hands. To relieve tension, I roller skated down the driveway, got good at dancing, at push-ups, at flipping scallion pancakes, remembering to save the pale roots and to put them in water by the window so the stalks would grow back like lizard tails. Though I was unsure if after the severing and the regeneration, if the new tails would be the same ones as before, or rather boneless approximations of the originals, fresh, green disasters. What I'm asking for is forgiveness. What I'm saying is there could never be enough. And then I'll end with a love poem. I write a nature poem, and it's a love poem to a slope of mottled grass. I yell, "Rebecca, Rebecca," in a crowd, and it's a love poem to the Rebeccas in the crowd. I cry, loose and bestial, and it's a love poem to a basin rich with salt. I load the dishwasher, and it's a love poem to the melange grace of mess. I refuse a multivitamin, and it's a love poem to my sparkle crown of deficiency. I wild around the lake, and it's a love poem to our own battery acid algae bloom pulsing. I sit around and do nothing, a love poem to the spongiform fault lines crisscrossing my body even now, especially now. I underline do nothing, and just like that, it's a love poem to the fiery horses that flare obsidian inside those violent circuits, done both to me and by my own hand, of course, a love poem to the half moons of my nails and to the avian carpal bones of the wrist, and to, I guess, the rest of it, which follows quietly and without ceremony. And thank you so much for having me. I can't wait for Jenna and Matthew and Chen Chen. Okay.
Thank you, Katie. Everyone give Katie some more jazz hands. Before we move on to Jenna, I do want to kind of give a shout out to KGB Bar. They are struggling like so many other places because of COVID, and they are asking for people to give donations. KGB is kind of an iconic literary landmark in New York City. You can go to their website, just look up KGB Bar NYC, donate a little money to them, especially if you're one of our MFA students who's gotten to read there and knows what a special place it is and how really tragic for the New York literary community it would be to lose them. So yeah, maybe drop them a little bit. Up next, we have Jenna Lanzaro. Jenna is a poet and teacher based in Jersey City, currently an MFA candidate in poetry at NYU as a Writers in the Public Schools Fellow. She spent 6 years prior teaching writing at a public middle school. A recent collaboration with composer Matthew Rescio will be premiered at Carnegie Hall when Carnegie Hall reopens. When she's not writing, she enjoys hiking with her cat Tarzan. I have a lot of questions about that, by the way. Playing roller coaster tycoon and eating large quantities of cheese. Everyone, please welcome Jenna.
Thank you. Yeah, my cat is leash trained, so yeah, I guess that's like not really that normal of a thing to do with your cat. Can you hear me? Awesome, cool. Thank you so much for having me, and also it's the fact that so many people I love are here is really kind of lovely. So I'm gonna start with 2 poems that are very, very recent that I wrote sort of in and during the pandemic, and then I'm going to move on because I feel like there's only so much time and space and energy I can actually devote to the pandemic. Last night's artisanal nudes, sponsored by Adore Delano, hairy and erotic, and the number 28. Fun fact, Saturn returns to the position of your birth after 28 years, and my being born May 28th, or the planetary docking in time-space, or upon perusal that the ghost I like to fuck was born on the 27th, died on the 18th, 27 years of age before he could collect his god's loot, means jack shit, except that I want it to mean a thing. This year sponsored by sheer will and forward propulsion. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. I used clear tape to stick the lashes from my sister's wedding. My love put them on at the hotel, then in the plastic bag, once we'd agreed that eyelids felt like dick skin, silk. Last night I wore them for the first time, sans pomp. Last night I got catcalled for the first time in 5 weeks. I said thanks. Last night I applied purple lipstick more and more until it creamed outside the border of my mouth like hot cheese. So this is a log of the ways in which I want you to see me, want me, because otherwise I am looking at me, I am wanting myself, and what does that mean? I hope at least someone touched their eyelid. All right, this next one is Ballad for the Curfew. Lush, these end times of pink blooms too soon and kids flinging their limbs off the curb. One shrieks the names of pandemics like he might stop a car with the right one. Jack snaps a kale leaf with a different plan. The kale and the chives endured winter. I endured winter. Mom slopped the floor with a vinegar wash, and then Erin burned sage, thus replaced my first life with blue smoke in the doors. Buying chips, I catch the smell of rubber. Nearby, a rubber factory is closed. Startled, freshly jobless, suck clean air. At the bar, our candidates tip to, one by one, pulling smoke to crevasse. Now the doors go unblessed. Now Jack calls the space between my ass cheeks a crevasse. He gets lost once, and from then on starts at the tailbone and journeys south. All day the phone rings. This supplants my nausea or reading the ingredients on bottles. We didn't get a cold snap, but there's this. Time zone residue, gnats. I scare a squirrel just by sitting where it didn't know. This is love, or at least what I've wanted, not the vodka shot, not the clean sweep. If you had one looping day, would you marry, learn chess, put stones in the bread for birds to choke, for the old man on the bench to say, I fed the birds all my life. What a shame. Thank you. All right, let's segue from pandemic-y things. A little context about this one. So This is based on a video game called Katamari Damacy. Has anyone played that before? I see Jazz like pumping her fist. Basically, the premise of the video game is you are a prince, your father is the king of the universe, he gets drunk and destroys the universe, and it is your job to reconstruct the universe by rolling around this little sticky ball called a Katamari. And at first you start collecting small things like pencils and paper clips, and then bigger things like animals and humans, and then finally mountains, clouds, trees. And when the ball gets big enough, you throw it up into the sky and it becomes a planet. And I think the idea of building a world via accumulation is fascinating, disturbing. And so that's kind of like the background context for this poem, which is also a monostitch. So it's a one sentence poem. You play Katamari Damacy. When your father, the king of all cosmos, drinks and wrecks the celestial bodies, it is your job to reconstruct the universe. So you start by rolling small parts into a ball. One spork, a conciliatory taco supreme, Rugrats blue, the hamster gone dense and clenched in the corner of its cage like how you'd want a good buttered up monkey bread to look. The beloved stain, at which point the accumulating mass begins to generate energy akin to chin scruff and the answering rash, a gravity whose waves make birds quake as in a gust like little flans, whose force collects plaster from walls, so any room nearby is a mouth in a dentist's chair, collects decommissioned subway stop with its still live third rail wanting a tickled tongue, collects times you fell asleep on the beach and slept drunk through hands like dowsing rods in the dark, at which point the mass swells and begins to sweat, lusts for gossip, asks about your uncle's wife, says it'll top off your wine one more time, then again, it'll proffer a hit one more time, at which point you decide you'd rather let it be. So you roll the pulsar onto the boardwalk and purchase 2 hot dogs and wait for whatever comes next. So this one has a little context too. I apologize. My poems kind of have footnotes and pictures and weird stuff on them, which is kind of hard to communicate in a non-visual format. So I'm just going to read the epigraph, which explains what a secret bakery is. Florence's cafes receive their fresh pastries from wholesalers who bake between approximately 1 and 4 a.m. If found, typically by smell or word of mouth, some bakers will sell fresh pastries through their back doors in these night hours. This is illegal. Most secret bakeries are located in unassuming residential neighborhoods. Secret bakery. Therefore, as I'm rooms, I thirst for paint to slop me lush. I eat landscapes to fill my gut into a planet trapped in the trick of my hips like some boys. Flee to Florence, get told, hair's oils is the olive picking did my people. Now my crown's a soil and I touch it seeking seeds. I look too for a secret bakery. Of course, a cornetto at night would kiss each of my wrists, put me down to bed sweet, make of my lore a kite. Tenderest things sate my roving, ends of tales a solve. Instead, a man followed me, he turned me, he kissed me, I pushed, he laughed and hit my face. The break of my lip was my first open door. All right, and this is my last one. Thank you so much to all of my fellow readers and to the organizers. I'm loving this sort of community space right now. It feels really good. The Art of Bonsai. Dear Prunus Mume, dear, your nomenclatures want to clench you less pink, you Japanese apricot in a pot that lets you think you're as grown as you could ever be. I'd like to take your names off. You are the first thing I've loved in a long time. Healed enough to love a little thing. I love you for your branches jolt and spray, the way my neurons propagate me into this new forward where I can love at last and love you. Here I gather rugs and drapes to make live the rooms of me. They were hollow, just light held in mouths. You smell like my birthday, or those first flowers, 6th grade Valentine's Day, from a boy who's a priest now and maybe always wanted to believe in a singular mechanism. I slip from my mechanisms, unclench the house, split lips to take your smell in more, put a letter there, you, each petal a tongue. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Those were amazing. Everyone give Jenna a few more jazz hands. All right. The one downside of hosting this on Zoom is I can see my face when I do it. I am not a fan of here. All right. Up next, we have Matthew Williams. Matthew is a poet from Sacramento, California, and an MFA candidate in the creative writing program at NYU. He is the recipient of the 2019 Galway Canal Memorial Scholarship from the community of writers. Everyone please welcome Matthew.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Rachel and Rebecca, for putting this all together, and everybody who helped organize it. And thanks to everybody for showing up and connecting and being here to listen to some words. I apologize that a lot of these are anxious, given all the anxiety that we're all sort of experiencing right now. But there is a little bit of love at the end, so hopefully that will be a salve to what happens before. All right, I'm just gonna jump into these poems, y'all. Let's do it. Flesh tether. He reasoned with rope, argued his naked prostration's resemblance to Kafka's In the Penal Colony, his mouth moving with the newborn's urgent thirst, which his bonds swallowed with taut retort. No commandant nor officer in the present tableau, no hanging blade ready to etch the sentence into his flesh and render a transcendent path legible, only the sturdy braid's refusal to loosen, like a father dragging his son through the Mall of America. These appeals and plots to escape made an easier task of witnessing time cannibalize itself. Several weeks he was lost, tugging one frayed string, content to tease its filaments until the tip bloomed to a backyard dandelion floating over the fence of his memory. And a year gnawing knots, never freeing himself, he taught his tongue the rope's coarse contours, could chart its wend and weave, remark on the artistry of the well-crafted ligature. He began to see their joy, that the braid's dense network of tendrils were dancers vanishing in the nightclub scrum of martini hedonists. He felt a lovely thump of blood at the bonds, bit the rope, pulled it tighter, and swooned like a bridesmaid for the purple bouquet of his own swollen fingers. I'm reading from my computer that I'm like zooming from at the same time, so I'm not actually looking at everybody, but so if I can't do the cool look at my poem and look up at the audience thing, so I apologize for that. Question refracted in water. Where are your aunts, cousins, uncles, all the grandmothers past? Where is the sepia-toned photograph of your great, great, great? Who is at the other end of the thread you've kept pulling until the bleak realization of just how thinly the family tapestry flutters on the arid Sacramento air? Who hovered above the loom and pricked their finger for the blood that fills the arterial tree blooming in the cleared field of your sclera? Whose terror at the Atlantic expanse? Whose old country hunger? Whose fortune built and squandered? Whose grisly innards spilled? Who stood naked at the gates of your birth and called you to their flesh, to the relentless pressure and Polaris of your name dangling in a blackened sky above the sea-black river running in the dark facets of your face? The history of my face. I can trace an eyebrow's upswung arc to two blonde comments on how much I resemble Drake. Bewildered brown eyes to a woman in Brussels rattling questions at me in Arabic or Farsi and forgiving my ignorance. I can trace a full bottom lip silenced between bleached teeth to a bistro manager asking me to cut my dreadlocks, hair he called matted like an animal's. I can trace keloids or my skin split open to a razor sharp oyster bed on the shoreline beside my grandfather's dock. I can trace this tender-headed wincing to my afro in a Sacramento cafe where the only other Black poet spoke on being in the room alone. So recently, my father and my husband and some of his family went to see the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, and this poem came out of going there and doing that with them. Ooh, I'm nervous. Hard to deny the hierophanic slant, the symmetry of a P-51 hung over the innumerable necks, craned blankly, all of us dumbstruck by the fine craft angled in endless ascension. And for a moment, a silence only broken by rubber on concrete. Congregants come to revel in humanity, unmoored, her earthly tethers forever cut in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, 1903, when the rights lifted the skeletal frame like a great starving bird to birth a long-awaited age. Here, all its progeny, all the chrome, glass, and painted faces, speechless as my grandfather's faded photo hanging over the fireplace, his sons and sons' sons circled around a dilapidated tape player, silent and waiting for the joy he mustered into voice amid the heat and steel of Vietnam to shake a memory from air. And beneath the SR-71's sleek wings, a man standing behind my father ponders aloud how many birds went deaf from the sonic booms, how many lived with the ghost limb of song flapping in the empty sleeve of their flight. And what a thing to see, he says, living history, the rapture of its black raptor face, or the Enola Gay's windowed dome open to skylight with unbridled suns in its belly, and airmen packed in, perched in the clouds, like the small gods we all dream we are, flying above Catalonia or California, Ireland or Martinique, Quebec, Belarus, Ulaanbaatar, Dresden, Nairobi, Damascus, Nanjing, Hiroshima, Ho Chi Minh City, below us, the cars beetling streets, threaded with figures scurrying from offices to homes grown small as dollhouses, to the countryside, to the farmland patchwork, suburban sprawl, exurb urban fabric knit by highways rising as keloid seams on a nation's scabrous face. Those graceful moments above, until arriving or returning, we spiral our slow descents, until the concrete is relief beneath us, remembering the delicate balance of lift and thrust that keeps us suspended in the subtle fear and ferocity hovering about the blades of the UH-60 Black Hawks my father flew, and beneath whose spectacle on the frail scales of my blood, I measure awe against a grandfather's shrapnel-shredded leg. Dear grandfathers, I cannot understand the answer you sent. The sun guttering in the Sierra Nevada was too cryptic, but that is my failure. Let me thank you for the birthday gift. The twilight fits well, Even its threadbare elbows have kept this memory I etch into each morning mirror, legible these 31 years. Even in hours dark as these, when I can see the cobra head smoke unhinging its jaw above the taillights snaking I-80. It seems the whole state may burn into Ouroboros. You don't need me to tell you this. Being rid of living, you know how ungainly the weight hangs about the shoulders. Instead, let me tell you how I woke this morning to my husband's hand clamped on my chest. He said I'd made a sound like choking, and the fear in his voice was love. Whew. Okay, we got through them together. I'm okay, you're okay, we're all okay. So now that I've mentioned my husband, the lovely Scott sitting behind me, in a poem, I'm gonna read a couple poems to finish out that I wrote for him. So bringing in a little love at the end. I've been floating around, flipping all the switches to green, insufferable, I'm sure. But before the world's inevitable dart parts me from my rainbow balloon bouquet, I switch this to green and seed and sweat like human dew, to you and I fogging the windows with blue dawn, kissing in the kitchen until onions go gold in butter, turning every inch of dingy city and burning asphalt to Bermuda grass and tender bramble and bamboo shoots rooting in the quotidian hum, dissolving the long gray song of days to a single afternoon's rare sugary bloom on the tongue's red tip and a sip of green tea to wash it down and floating and floating and floating around. And thank you for bearing with me through those. And thank you again, everybody, for being here and listening. This is my last poem, Ode to a Fat Boy. I never desired the lean inches or knew who placed them at the pale edge of heaven to wield their easy leonine smiles and vodka tonics against you. But honey, when you arrive in the bar, round as another world, a butter-rich prayer melts on my tongue, and I know new houses of worship, corpulent altars worthy of dirtied knees and sweaty bacchanals in the great halls of our throats. All right, that's what I got. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Those were beautiful. Everyone give Matthew some more jazz hands. I'm looking through our audience tonight, and I'm noticing we have like 20 poetry students here and only like 3 fiction students. You know, so that's fine. The rest of the fiction program is now dead to me, but it's fine. Thank you, poetry students, for coming. Thank you to the 3 fiction students. You guys are awesome. I am delighted to introduce our headlining reader tonight, Chen Chen. Chen is the author of When I Grow Up, I Want to Be a List of Further Possibilities, which was longlisted for the National Book Award and won the Tom Gunn Award, among other honors. His work appears in many publications, including Poetry, Plowshares, the New York Times Magazine, and Best American Poetry. He has received a Pushcart Prize and fellowships from Kundiman and the National Endowment for the Arts. He teaches at Brandeis University as the Jacob Ziskin Poet in Residence. I asked my co-coordinator, Luke Jorgensen, to write a few words because he was our original coordinator for this event before it got corona'd. So Luke writes, Chen's poetry communicates deeply with the reader. He uses whimsy and humor to disarm and uses the space he creates to cover large, serious topics such as sexuality, identity, racial politics, and love, with care and thoughtfulness. His poems are tonally astute and are sure to move you as he reads tonight. Everyone please welcome me and join me in welcoming, there we go, Chen Chen.
Oh my God, hi. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks To Rachel and Rebecca, thanks to Luke for those words at the end of that intro. Just beautiful. This is my 4th Zoom meeting this weekend. And I'm just very glad that it's a poetry reading. What a treat. Yeah, and just thank you to the readers, to Katie, to Jenna, to Matthew. I was jotting down some lines, just phrases really, but from Katie, the noun painted over, Jenna, flee to Florence, Matthew, for the purple bouquet of his own swollen fingers. And you said such fun things in your bios too. If I'd known that was like a thing, I would have sent more stuff about, like Tuxedo Mask, and Sarah Neptune. Just beautiful things in the world. Yeah, so I'm gonna start with actually a poem by Victoria Chang from her new book, Obit. I just interviewed her for Electric Lit, so the book has been on my mind. And just as a sort of content warning for my reading, because I'm realizing that there is a lot of grief and loss and mentioned illness in some of these poems. So if you need to step out, just take care of yourself. So this first poem, so yeah, it's from Obit. And so many of the poems take the form of these obituaries, some of them addressing the speaker's mother who has died, and then others more metaphorically. So language dies, voicemail dies, logic, optimism, friendships, privacy, the future, and so on. This is my favorite one. It's called The Blue Dress, or one of my favorites. The Blue Dress died on August 6th, 2015, along with the little blue flowers, all silent. Once the petals looked up, now small pieces of dust. I wonder whether they burned the dress or just the body. I wonder who lifted her up into the fire. I wonder if her hair brushed his cheek before it grew into a bonfire. I wonder what sound the body made as it burned. They dyed her hair for the funeral, too black. She looked like a comic character. I waited for the next comic panel to see the speech bubble and what she might say. But her words never came, and we were left with the stillness of blown glass, the irreversibility of rain, and millions of little blue flowers. Imagination is having to live in a dead person's future. Grief is wearing a dead person's dress forever. So I'm gonna jump around, just reading a couple poems from my book. Yeah, this one I haven't thought about in a while, but some people were really kind to share it online recently. So I was like, oh, that poem. I think maybe because it has to do with summer. This is called Summer Was Forever. Time dripped from the faucet like a magician's botched trick. I did not want to applaud it. I stood to one side and thought, what it's time for is a garden or a croissant factory. What kind of work do I need to be doing? My parents said, doctor, married to lawyer. The faucet said, drip, drop, your life sucks. But sometimes no one said anything, and I saw him, the local paper boy on his route, his beanstalk frame and fragile bicycle. And I knew we would be so terribly happy. Our work would be simple. Our kissing would rhyme with cardiac arrest. Birds would overthrow the cathedral towers. I would have a magician's hair full of sleeves and saws, unashamed to tell the whole town our first date was in a leaky faucet factory. How we fell in love during jumps on his tragic uncle's trampoline. We fell in love in midair. Self-portrait with and without. With dried cranberries, without a driver's license, with my mother's worry, without, till recently, my father's glasses, with an A in English, a C in chemistry, with my mother saying, you have to be 3 times better than the white kids at everything, without a dog or cat, with a fish. With a fish I talked to before bed, telling him my ideas for new kinds of candy, with a tutor in Mandarin, with the 1986 low-budget live-action TV version of Journey to the West, with Monkey King's quest for redemption, Buddhism through Monster of the Week battle sequences, with thinking, I've grown up now, because I regularly check the news in the morning. With the morning, the children, spared or missed by the child with a gun, go back to school, make the same jokes they made 3 Mondays ago, but in a different voice. With the younger brother who is taller than I am, with the youngest brother who wants to go to art school, with my mother's multiplying worries, with my brothers, with the cry of bats, with the salt of circumstance, without citizenship, with the white boy in 9th grade who called me ugly, without my father for a year because he had to move away to the one job he could find on the other side of the state, with his money transferred to my mother, with William Carlos Williams, with the local library, with yet another big sale for Honduras and Massachusetts suburbia, with the earthquake in my other country, with my mother's long distance calls, with my aunt's calls from China when the towers fell. How far are you from New York? How far are you from New York? With cities fueled by scars, with the footprint of a star, with the white boy I liked, with him calling me ugly, with my knees on the floor, with my hands begging for straighter teeth, lighter skin, blue eyes, green eyes, any eyes brighter other than mine. I think the youngest brother is taller than I am too now. Just love that for me. This is called In the City. It's dedicated to my friend Monica Soak, who attended NYU. What a great program, so much talent and brilliance. So this is based on when I would visit her in New York, in the city. Oh, and get her book, A Nail the Evening Hangs On, if you haven't already. Amazing. Okay, In the City. These bridges are a feat of engineering. These pork and chive dumplings we bought together before hopping on a train and crossing bridges are a feat of engineering. Talking to you, crossing bridges and trains, eating pork and chive dumplings in your bright boxcar of a kitchen in Brooklyn is an engineer's dream feat of astonishment. Tonight, I cannot believe the skyline because the skyline believes in me, forgives me my drooling astonishment over it and over the fact that this happens this night, every night, its belief glittering mad and megawatt like the dreams of parents. By the way, is this soy sauce reduced sodium? Do you know? Do we care? High unabashed sodium intake. Unabashed exclamation points. New York is an exclamation I take, making my escape away from the quiet, snowy commas of upstate and the mess of questions marking my Bostonian past. In New York, we read Darwish. We write broken sonnets, finally forgiving the broken English of our mothers. We eat pork and chive dumplings. And I know it's such a 90s fantasy of multiculturalism that I am rehashing. But still, in New York, I feel I can tell you how my mother and I used to make dumplings together, like a scene out of the Joy Luck Club. The small kitchen, the small bowl of water between us, how we dipped index finger, thumb, sealed each dumpling like tucking in a secret goodnight. The meat of a memory, a feat of engineering, a dream of mother and son. interrupted by the father, my father, who made my mother get on a plane, a theory, years of nowhere across American nose, a degree that proved useless, proved he was the father. I try to build a bridge to my parents, but only reach my mother, and it's a bridge she's about to jump off of. I run to her, she jumps, she's swimming, saying, finally, I've learned, all this time, trying to get from one useless chunk of land to another when I should have stayed in the water. And we're drinking tap water in your bright Brooklyn kitchen. I don't know what to tell you. I thought I could tell this story, give it away out of itself. Even here in my fabulous Tony-winning monologue of New York, I'm struggling to get to the joy, the luck. I tell you my mother still boils the water, though she knows she doesn't have to anymore. Her special kettle boils in no time, as a feat of engineering. She could boil my father in it, and he'd come out a better person, in beautiful shoes. She could boil the Atlantic, the Pacific, every idyllic American pond with its swans. She would. So now I think I'm going to read this poem she wrote a while ago, but it just came out in this chapbook from Glass Poetry. It's called Gesundheit, and it's a collaboration with my best friend, Sam Herschel-Wine. Chapbook doesn't really make any sense. We were like looking it over recently. I'm like, what were we even thinking? Like, why is it called Gesundheit? Like, sure, there's some sneezing in it, but it's not really a theme. Anyway, we just had so much fun doing it. So yeah, we each have a poem called Friendship in it. And just thinking about Sam, he's in Chicago. We met at a writing thing in 2014 and have been really close friends since. So yeah, just thinking about long distance right now and friendships and checking in with each other and just how meaningful that is. Friendship. Oh, and because we were supposed to go on tour, like a mini tour this spring, in promotion of to the chapbook. So I feel like reading this poem. Friendship is a mean curl of moon coming at you in rollerblades. Let our pelvises listen to friendship's bright crisscrossing of night and terrible futons too many miles apart. Let our pelvises be wrapped in a gleaming blanket made by celestial collaboration, the sun lending itself to the moon's face. Friendship is a face, rollerblading and wearing short shorts and handing out hot dogs in the midst of spiky roaches, leaky rooms. Friendship waits till everyone has a hot dog and is ready before putting on their own rollerblades. Friendship's hot dogs are indeed the moon's hot dogs and don't taste all that great. But friendship doesn't expect you to take every bite to finish. Friendship wants you to have what it can make, what it is trying to make with its small moon hands, its crescent hands crisscrossing the night and our cities swollen with dream. Friendship travels at the speed of heat and one bite of mustard dripping hot dog. Friendship travels at the speed of a favorite music video, never loading on Safari while we wait and wait. Friendship is the crashed browser, the honey of not going to bed at bedtime. We are busy listening to friendship in the softest part of our pelvises. And I'll read some newer work. I think just 2 more poems, maybe 3. Let's see how I'm feeling. This poem, okay. Yeah, I feel like reading this now. Okay, I haven't read this one in a while. This is called Winter. Big, smelly bowel movements this blue January morning. From the living room TV, a commercial from our TV company. We're the fastest, the only, meaning love us above all others. What makes poop more pungent on certain days? A question for science. From the living room TV, the powerful cite law, bark order, meaning love us or else. Years ago, a teacher said never to use the word poop in a poem. Today, the icy kiss of the toilet seat wakes me up. Today, I poop. While my boyfriend shouts from the living room, "Did you hear that?" Meaning the atomic scientists who say we are now 2.5 minutes to midnight. But still I marvel whenever poop comes out as one true platonic tube. I'm trying to be marvelous and to make my enemies throw up. I mean, if you shower with soap and eat well, maintaining consistent gastrointestinal health, you should be ready for a rim job or other forms of anal play. My boyfriend and I are not platonic. From the TV, a white supremacist cites science sparks two sides to every, I mean up the throat, out the mouth, the fastest, the only way the powerful will let go of their shit. I mean, my boyfriend and I are not into scat, but if you are, I hope your beloved produces the most fragrant, citrusy shit. I mean, is shit more or less literary than poop? I mean, one winter night I got sick and pooped the bed. And he just got up with me, helped strip the sheets, carry it all to the washer. I kept saying, "I'm so sorry," shivering, I'm sorry. But he said, "What? Hey, I love you." Yeah, I think I'll just read 2 more, the shorter ones. So I was writing all these poems titled after seasons, mainly summer and winter, because I was living in West Texas and it felt like that's all that existed. Seasons were very different. I grew up in the Northeast. And so I was accustomed to more distinct changes. But yeah, the summer just felt so long. So I was writing all these poems called Summer. And then I wrote this one, and this is called, oh wait, the title of this changed. The Order of the Seasons, whatever, it's fine. Summer, autumn, winter, spring, but it's like, yeah, there's a different version of it floating around now. I pushed my face toward the sleeping radiator. I smelled a form of justice. I wanted to be a poet. I waved my living hands, dead coupons. I watched him brush his teeth. His teeth glinted gorgeous. I stumbled, cartwheeled. I said, "I will always fight alongside you in the fight against Tartar buildup." I said, "I will." I said, "Thank God," without believing in thanks. I thought what my parents did, those weren't poems. I believed what white people said about my parents. I had to say stop believing them. I suckled, pickled, made mistakes about octopi, wore a blue jockstrap and took pictures, accepted stickers of astounded apples from friends. I was a wind smooching this other wind with very good teeth. I was a name everyone in America thought they were saying right. Even he thought so, then asked, "Is that right?" I pushed my face toward the noisy radiator. In labor and here. In bed, I touched his voice and his belly. I touched his goodnight. He said it always like it was important. It was important. I believed in the silver millennium. I said, "Sailor Neptune, one day a poem for you." I said, "Sailor Neptune, teach me the deep submerge, the submarine reflection, the thunderously turquoise hair." I was a name in America and would forget I belonged to my teeth. I dropped a single wish down the cavernous mailbox. He would ask, "Is that right?" He would bring a single microwave donut on a blue napkin at dusk. He would leave me alone with my poems. Oh, if I could lick all your toes at once, I would write that poem. I loved him, I told him. I loved him, so told him about the dream. The dream starred my parents, stars of a death metal band's debut music video. They danced like everyone was watching. It was important. Their arms were poems. They said, so what if we misspell auditorium? So fucking what? We'll always say your name right. They pushed their faces toward me, their poems toward me. They leapt and thrashed. They were stars, stars, stars. I woke up weeping. Do you understand? I thought I could only fall asleep doing that. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just end there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chen. That was really so beautiful. Everyone, let's give some more jazz hands for Chen and also for our other readers, Katie, Jenna, and Matthew. And I lost myself here. There I am. All right, and I want to give a very genuine thanks to all of the audience who came out tonight and supported us. I know it can feel very lonely in quarantine, and so having these moments are really special, and I'm sure all the readers really appreciated you being here. Normally I would tell you to come to our May KGB event. I don't know if that's going to happen. We might do it remotely like this, I hope, so stay tuned. And yeah, thank you all so much. Rachel, you want to close out here?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for being an incredible host. Jazz hands to Rebecca for being an incredible host. And again, to all of our readers, thank you all so, so much. We'll be back with this next week at the same time doing something else. So if you want to help us, do something now at this time next week, just let me know. But thank you all so much for coming, and hope to see you again very soon, and stay well. Thank you, everyone.